Hello everyone, it's Joe here from SnakeDraftFPL and welcome back to the channel. We are today looking at the season review. This video is a little bit self-indulgent. I'm going to look back through the teams that I've managed this year, how they've got on, and just kind of, share my thoughts on how the season's gone. So if you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's have a little look, shall we? So this season I managed 5 draft teams. I did actually have 6, but one of them was just a mess around really. So 5 proper draft teams. Each of these leagues were a 10-man league, apart from the Snake Draft League, which is 11-man, and that is the league that I finished 8th in. So as you can see here, 2 wins, first place in 2 leagues, 3rd in 1. That was the DraftFPL Twitter League that we ran on Draft Fantasy Football with standard FPL scoring. Won 6th place and won 8th place, as I said, in the Snake Draft League. The 2 leagues that I won and the league that I finished 6th in were all run from a Discord server, which has all kinds of different leagues, pyramid, promotion, relegation style, different buying amounts. If you are looking for a league and you want to join, then feel free to drop me a DM or message me on one of the platforms and I will point you in the right direction. It's great fun, lots of engaged managers, some really brutally tough leagues, but yeah, it's really good fun. So overall I'm reasonably happy with the season. I would have liked to get a bit of a better placement in the Snake Draft League. That one really hurt, but to be honest, my team was absolutely terrible at the draft. I thought it looked okay at the time, but looking back now, it was just a really poor team that I drafted. But I will say, if you look at so I've got on the screen here my total head-to-head points and my overall season score. They're pretty tightly grouped. Obviously, the top one you can see there, 1,843 points. That was my best team, and it was my best team by far. Even in that league, it still came down to the final day. It took the guy who finished 2nd to lose on the final day for me to actually clinch the title in that league. So, even with a really strong team, if you get unlucky with your matchups, it can be really tight. But in general, I feel like all the teams were pretty close. As I said, the two leagues where I didn't do so well, the 6th and 8th place, those teams were weaker, and I think most of that comes down to the team I drafted, but we'll have a little look at those in a second. So let's just jump into it then. So first up, this was my best team. I think this was my favourite team. You can see the team I drafted from game week 1 on the left and the team I finished with in game week 38 on the right. So finished first, 74 head-to-head points, total score of 1843, 72 total transactions. So even though I really did like the team at the draft, that's still pretty much 2 transactions a week, close to, which is about standard for me. I'd say that's about average. Generally, I'm sitting at about 60 to 80 transactions. Occasionally, there will be some teams that I end up, with 100 plus if the team has some real problems. Generally, I'm looking at a defender and a midfielder each week. Sometimes that varies. Sometimes you need to make different moves, but that's pretty much what I go for. The only players that survived from the draft were Bruno Fernandes, Mahrez, Kane, and Watkins, I believe. So quite a high turnover there. But that again, and the keepers. Meslier anyway. I swapped out Sanchez for Steele when that change happened in the Brighton lineup, but. That's about standard for me. Lots of turnover, especially in the midfield. Those 3 midfield slots changed pretty much all year. Garnacho and Decore I picked up before the final day. Couple of decent transactions. I picked up Almiron in this league quite early, and that really helped because obviously his run before the World Cup was unbelievable, and that really propelled me up the league. I also in this league picked up Matoma, got a couple of returns and then dropped him, and then someone else took him. So I did miss out on a lot of his returns. But I did have Solly March for a while in this league until he got injured, which did really help as well. A theme, I think, as well, when you see successful draft teams is the first 2 picks really being a hit. And Kane and Bruno Fernandes, the first 2 picks in this league. But the first 4 picks, Mahrez and Watkins included. Obviously, Mahrez had a slow start, but he really helped out towards the end of the year. And I think having a solid first 2 picks that are successful is a massive differentiator. As you'll see as we go along, that is not always the case. So next up then, the other team that I managed to win a league with, only 65 transactions in this one. This team was pretty steady for the majority of the year, and I think the reason why I had lower transaction counts in this league was because my defence was pretty stable for the majority of the year. So I started with Trippier, Ake, White, Cash, and Gahey, and I think I kept White, Trippier, Ake, and Gahey for quite a long period of the season. Keepers, Pope and Ward I started with, and then moved to Pope and Pickford after a while, but that was a real success. The double Newcastle defence absolutely helped massively in this one. This team actually, my first 2 picks were Son and Mount, which was a little bit disastrous, but I managed to make up for that in this league with really good waiver picks. I had loads of short-term waivers that really came off in this league, like repeatedly. I also managed to... I did a trade in this league. In fact, the trade, looking back now, looks horrendous, but I traded away Darwin, Mount, and fodder defender for Reece James, Bowen, and Isaac. And it did work out quite well, but I did end up dropping Isaac. This was quite early in the season when he got injured, so it didn't actually work out as well as I thought. But I was happy to lose Mount. Reece James never did anything for me from when I got him to when I eventually dropped him. I think he played like 1 game, so that was an absolute disaster. I did manage to pick up Diogo Jota before he came back from injury, and that was a big boost in this league as well. But this, I think, it was kind of the team that I'm probably most proud of doing well with, because I did have a really strong season, but my first few picks really did not come off. Son, Mount, Grealish, Darwin, I think were my first 4 picks in this league, and that was just terrible because Son really disappointing, especially at the start. Mount just never lifted off the ground. Grealish was terrible until the World Cup. Darwin was okay, but like I said, I traded him away in about game week 10, something like that. But I just kept making waivers over and over again. And just had a settled defence that worked quite well, and that was it really. Next up, this team finished 6th. Again, I was quite disappointed to finish 6th, but actually, 1,653 overall points is pretty good. I think it was the 3rd highest in the league, and this league was one of the toughest leagues I've ever played in. Every single manager was really switched on. The table was really tight. Like I said, I finished 6th. I think I was 9 points off winning, so 3 tight games over the course of the season, I could have ended up winning it. The mistake, not the mistake, because at the time it seemed like a good decision, but the thing that really cost me in this league was my first draft pick was Trent. I think I was about 8th in the draft, and I went for Trent. And, Liverpool, especially up until the World Cup, were just defensively awful. Trent was having a nightmare season, and that just really didn't work out. I mean, it helped that I picked up Martinelli at the draft because he kind of offset that a little bit by really overperforming. I also got Almiron. I actually drafted Almiron in this league, which at the time was a little bit bizarre. I think I did end up dropping him and then picking him back up. So yeah, the midfield in this league was a bit of a minefield. 69 transactions, so again about par really. Again, I didn't make as many defensive transactions, I don't think, in this league because I had Trent from the start. That's like one slot that just starts every week. I mostly, and it doesn't look like it in this, but I mostly play 3 defenders anyway. So there's only 2 defenders I really need to worry about. I made loads of midfield and forward changes in this league. I started with Watkins, Edouard and Mbeumo, which was horrendous. Watkins did well once Emery came in, but they really struggled at the start of the season. As did, I picked Ramsey at the draft as well. Double Villa, expected that to do well, but if you remember, Villa were terrible until Gerrard got sacked. So I started off really slow. I was dead last at Christmas in this league. So it did take a while for this team to get going, but I managed to turn it around to an extent. It's just a shame I couldn't quite claw back enough places. Next up then is the DraftFPL Twitter League. We ran this on draftfantasyfootball.co.uk with standard FPL scoring. It has a very slightly different waiver system. That's the only real difference. This team I thought at the draft was amazing. I thought I drafted like the best team ever. You know, Bruno, Mount, Luis Diaz, Bamford, Watkins, Solanke. I just thought it was a really steady team and was going to do really well. Well, it started off okay. I was kind of okay all season. This team, I'll be honest, had the least of my attention, mainly because it was on Draft Fantasy. The waivers run really early in the week and I kept forgetting. So I didn't give this team as much attention as I should have. But it still went okay. You know, I'd go on and be like, oh God, I haven't made my, draft Twitter League picks and stuff. So I'd go on towards, close to the deadline and make a few frees and set my lineup each week. So yeah, it didn't get the attention that some of the other teams did. And you can tell that by I only had Pope for game week 38, who obviously didn't play. But this league had playoffs, and I'd already lost in the semis anyway, so I wasn't too worried about that. I did actually in this league trade Saka for Mount, I'm pretty sure, which was an absolute bargain, and that worked out really well. I think that was really early, maybe game week 2 or game week 3 I managed to get that trade in, so that did really sort me out. And really improve my chances, because without that trade I think I would have done really quite poorly in this league. Finally then we have the Snake Draft League, 8th, really disappointing. It's the first time I've ever finished outside the playoffs. We do playoffs in game week 37 and game week 38, semis and a final. So in my 8th season of competing in this league, it's the first time I finished outside the top 4. And again, I was close. I think I was 6 points off playoffs. I had the 3rd or 4th highest overall score. I just got really unlucky. It's easy to say, it was just bad luck, but I did get really unlucky in this league. I think I had the 2nd highest points scored against me. The draft killed me really, because this draft team, I think Mitrovic was great. Everyone else, nothing really worked. I can't even tell you who my second so Robertson was my second pick. That did not work out at all. Even when Liverpool started playing better, he was playing basically left centre back, which is not ideal. Coutinho was my 3rd pick. He was a disaster. Managed to get Maddison. That was okay. I ended up trading him for Bruno Fernandes, which worked out pretty well. Sterling was an absolute nightmare. First pick. I think I had 5th or 6th pick overall. Went for Sterling and it just could not have gone any worse. That really cost me in this league, to be honest. I also kept with him for way too long. I wasn't getting any trade offers and I thought there's no point dropping him just in case he goes off, and that just never happened at all. So already next year I've said I'm definitely not picking Sterling in any leagues. He's a nightmare. But actually I'm now kind of thinking he may swing the other way into like the underrated category, and with Poch he might do quite well. So I'm thinking maybe if I can get him in maybe the 3rd or 4th round, it might actually be a good pick. So I'll probably we'll end up drafting him, even though I've said I definitely won't, because that's just kind of how my mind works. But yeah, I don't have a transaction count for Draft Fantasy, but I imagine this one was really high. I was making changes constantly because I really didn't like the team basically at any stage. 1784 seems like a really good total, but we do play with Kante points as well in this league. So you get 1 point per every 2 tackles or interceptions, which doesn't make a massive difference, to be honest. You probably get an extra 3 or 4 points a week. But obviously over the course of the season, that probably is about an extra 100 points. So this is probably about 1684-ish, I would say. Which is still not a bad total. I mean, as I said, it was, I think, 3rd highest in the league. It's just disappointing how my head-to-head games went through the season. But I'm hoping we're going to bounce back strongly next year. Finally then, I know it's not draft, but I also do play classic FPL, as I'm sure many other people do. Finished 162k, which is not great. I've had a couple of top 20k finishes, a few top 100k. I was aiming for top 100k this year. That was that's always my goal, really, just get inside the top 100k. I was at like 110k going into game week 38, and I was losing my Works mini league. I was basically about 10 points behind someone that I work with, and I wanted to beat him. So I decided I don't really care if I finish 110k or 160k. I'm going to go a little bit rogue for game week 38 and hope it comes off. So the mistake I made was keeping Haaland. I had some real problems going into 38, so it would have been a -8 if I'd gone to Kane, which in the hindsight I should have done, but yeah, I didn't really fancy it. So I went for Odegaard and Foden were the 2 midfield punts I went for, and I captained Salah because I knew the person I was chasing didn't own Salah, so I knew that was a diverse captain. Went for Odegaard and Foden. They both blanked. That wasn't ideal. Haaland never came off the bench as I thought he would, so that again wasn't ideal. So yeah, I went for it. Didn't pay off. 160k is whatever. As I said, I was going to win my mini league in top 100k. I needed to do something different. It didn't quite work out. So we go again next year. I don't care too much about Classic FPL. I mean, I play it and I pay attention to it, but it's definitely, a secondary priority to draft. And that wraps up the season review. Thank you all for watching. Thanks everyone to subscribing to the channel, to commenting on the videos, sharing it with your friends. It's been a pretty good season in terms of the channel. Gone from like 50 subs to like 1100 and something. So I feel like we're starting to grow a bit of a community, which is always the aim. So yeah, thanks again to everyone that has subscribed, liked the videos, commented, and yeah, that's a wrap on this season. My next video will probably be when the fixtures come out, and I think that's normally around the end of June. So I'll probably make a video when the fixtures come out, have a little look through those. Then I will make a video when the actual Draft FPL game launches, which I reckon will be maybe the second week of July, something like that, first week of July. And then from there, we're going to have loads of preseason content. We're going to have draft rankings, strategy, player, previews, all sorts. So we'll be back for then. I'm going to have a couple of months of getting all my spare time back, which is going to be nice. So I'll see you then. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next season.